Who's this woman to you? I don't know her.
Husband denied his pregnant wife in public, but got shocked when the president proposed to her. Distinguished viewers, welcome to Luxury True Life Stories. Please like and subscribe for more amazing real-life luxury stories. Now, let's get into the story. Rita Charles grew up in a quiet coastal town where life was simple but filled with warmth. Her father, Samuel Charles, was a hard-working carpenter known for his honesty, while her mother, Eleanor Charles, taught art at a local community center. Their modest home was small but lively, filled with paintings, handmade furniture, and the comforting scent of wood polish from Samuel's workshop. Though the family never had much money, Rita was raised in a home rich with love, creativity, and encouragement. From a young age, she developed a fascination with beautiful spaces, how colors, furniture, and light could transform a simple room into something extraordinary. As a teenager, Rita spent many afternoons helping her father measure wood or sketching designs beside him while he worked. She loved imagining how dull houses could become warm, welcoming homes with the right arrangement of colors and furniture. Eleanor encouraged her artistic talent, often giving her old design magazines and sketchbooks to practice in. Rita's dreams slowly took shape. She wanted to become an interior designer and create spaces that made people feel safe and inspired. Even when life felt uncertain, the dream stayed with her like a quiet promise of a better future. By the time Rita graduated from college with a degree in interior design, she had already built a reputation among friends and neighbors for her creativity. She eventually secured a junior position at a small design firm in the city, where she spent long hours assisting senior designers and learning the industry. The work was demanding, but Rita loved every moment of it. She believed that if she worked hard enough, one day she would design grand homes and elegant buildings. She had no idea that her life was about to change dramatically, because soon she would meet a man whose ambition and charm would draw her into a relationship that would shape her destiny in ways she never imagined. Desmond Carter grew up in a powerful and wealthy family known for influence in business and politics. His father, Richard Carter, owned several successful corporations, while his mother, Vivian Carter, was a strict socialite who valued reputation above everything else. Their luxurious mansion was impressive, but it lacked warmth. Desmond was raised with discipline and constant pressure to succeed. From a young age, he was taught that status, wealth, and influence were the true measures of success. Unlike Rita's loving upbringing, Desmond's childhood was filled with expectations. His father pushed him to excel in business, while his mother constantly reminded him that the Carter name had to remain respected among the elite. Desmond became ambitious and determined, working tirelessly through university where he studied business and finance. His intelligence and confidence quickly helped him secure a position at a prestigious corporate consulting firm. Within a few years, he began rising quickly in the business world. However, behind his success was a growing hunger for power and recognition. Desmond admired wealthy elites and dreamed of becoming one of the most influential men in the country. At that time, he was still charming and polite, and many people respected him for his discipline and focus. But as his ambition grew stronger, so did his obsession with status. It was during one of his company's renovation projects that his path would unexpectedly cross with Rita Charles, a meeting that would change both their lives forever. Rita Charles first encountered Desmond Carter during a renovation project assigned to her design firm. The company Desmond worked for had just purchased a new office building in the heart of the city, and Rita's firm had been hired to redesign the interior space. As a junior designer, Rita was responsible for preparing sketches, color plans, and furniture arrangements for the conference areas. She took the assignment seriously, spending late nights refining her ideas so the space would feel modern yet welcoming. On the day the design team presented their plans, Rita was nervous but excited because it was the first major project she had been allowed to contribute to. Desmond attended the meeting as the corporate representative overseeing the renovation. Dressed in a sharp dark suit, he carried himself with confidence and authority. When Rita presented her design concept for the executive lounge, combining soft lighting, natural wood textures, and comfortable seating, Desmond listened carefully. Unlike the other executives who focused mostly on cost and efficiency, he seemed genuinely interested in her creativity. After the meeting ended, he approached her and complimented her design, saying it was the first proposal that made the office feel human rather than mechanical. Rita was surprised by his attention, but she appreciated the kindness behind his words. That brief conversation turned into several more during the weeks that followed as the project continued. Desmond often visited the site to review progress, and each time he found himself drawn to Rita's calm personality and quiet passion for her work. Rita, in turn, admired his confidence and intelligence. Their conversations gradually moved beyond work topics into discussions about dreams, careers, and life ambitions. Neither of them realized that this professional connection was slowly becoming something deeper, something that would soon grow into a relationship that seemed full of promise at the beginning. As the renovation project progressed, Rita and Desmond began spending more time together. Their conversations slowly shifted from professional discussions to personal moments shared over coffee during lunch breaks. Rita spoke passionately about her dream of designing beautiful homes and spaces that made people feel comfortable and inspired. Desmond, who was used to the cold and competitive world of business, found her sincerity refreshing. Around Rita, he felt a sense of calm that he rarely experienced in his demanding career. Their connection soon grew beyond the workplace. Desmond started inviting Rita to quiet restaurants and evening walks through the city's historic districts. Unlike the luxurious places his wealthy colleagues preferred, he enjoyed the simple cafes Rita liked, small places filled with music, soft lighting, and friendly conversation. Rita admired his determination and intelligence, believing he was a hard-working man building a future through dedication. At that stage of his life, Desmond still showed warmth and charm, and he treated Rita with kindness that made her feel valued. Within months, their relationship deepened. Rita introduced Desmond to her parents during a weekend visit to her hometown, and they welcomed him warmly. Samuel Charles appreciated Desmond's ambition, while Eleanor admired how attentive he seemed toward their daughter. For the first time in years, Desmond experienced the comfort of a family that cared more about love than reputation. Those early days were filled with hope and simple happiness, and both of them believed they were building a future together that would only grow stronger with time. As their relationship grew stronger, Desmond eventually realized that Rita had become an important part of his life. Her kindness and optimism balanced the pressure-filled world he lived in, and she believed in him even during difficult moments in his career. One evening, after months of dating, Desmond invited Rita to a quiet park overlooking the city skyline. The lights of the buildings shimmered in the distance as the sun slowly set behind them. In that peaceful moment, he told Rita that he wanted her to be part of his future. With sincerity in his voice, he proposed to her. Rita, overwhelmed with joy and emotion, happily accepted. Their wedding was simple but beautiful. Unlike the extravagant ceremonies common among wealthy families, Rita preferred something small and meaningful. The ceremony took place in a charming garden chapel surrounded by close friends and family. Samuel proudly walked his daughter down the aisle, while Eleanor watched with tears of happiness. Desmond's parents attended as well, though they quietly wished for a more luxurious event. Still, the ceremony was filled with warmth, laughter, and sincere promises between the couple as they began their new life together. In the first months of their marriage, Rita and Desmond lived in a modest apartment near the city center. Rita continued working at the design firm, while Desmond focused on building his reputation in the corporate world. Though their lives were busy, they supported each other and shared dreams about the future they hoped to create. Rita believed that with love, patience, and hard work, they could overcome any challenge together. At that time, neither of them realized how dramatically success and ambition would soon begin to change Desmond, and slowly reshape the life they had promised to build together. Over the next few years, Desmond Carter's career advanced faster than he had ever imagined. His sharp intelligence and fearless decision-making quickly earned him recognition inside the corporate world. Major clients trusted him to negotiate difficult deals, and his company rewarded him with promotions, bonuses, and greater authority. Soon he was no longer the young employee attending meetings quietly, he was the one leading them. His name began appearing in business magazines that praised his strategic thinking and ambition. With every achievement, Desmond moved closer to the powerful life he had always dreamed about. Their lifestyle changed along with his success. The small apartment where he and Rita once lived was replaced by a luxurious penthouse in the financial district. Expensive cars, designer clothes, and invitations to elite social gatherings became part of Desmond's daily life. Rita was happy for his achievements and supported him proudly, but she noticed something slowly changing in his personality. The man who once enjoyed quiet dinners and long conversations now spent most evenings attending corporate events or networking with wealthy investors. He became more concerned about reputation, status, and appearances than the simple life they once shared. Rita tried to remain patient and understanding, believing the pressure of success was simply overwhelming him. She continued focusing on her work as an interior designer, gradually building her own reputation for creativity and elegance. Yet the distance between them kept growing. Desmond often returned home late at night, tired and distracted, rarely asking about Rita's day or her dreams. The warmth that once defined their relationship slowly faded into cold silence. Though Rita still believed in their marriage, she could feel that something was changing, and deep inside, she feared that the man she had fallen in love with was slowly becoming someone she barely recognized. It was during one of the city's most glamorous corporate charity events that Desmond Carter first met Melinda Ramsey. The ballroom was filled with powerful executives, politicians, and wealthy investors, all gathered under dazzling chandeliers and soft music. Rita had originally planned to attend the event with Desmond, but he insisted it was a serious networking occasion and suggested she stay home and rest after a long day of work. Rita trusted him and agreed, never imagining that this particular evening would quietly introduce a new presence into her husband's life. Melinda Ramsey was the type of woman who immediately attracted attention when she entered a room. Tall, confident, and elegant, she worked in luxury brand marketing and was well known among elite social circles. But behind her charm was a sharp and calculating mind. Melinda understood how powerful men thought, and she knew exactly how to present herself in ways that made them feel admired and important. When she was introduced to Desmond by a mutual business associate, she quickly recognized his rising influence and the wealth surrounding him. To Melinda, Desmond looked like an opportunity. Their first conversation lasted only a few minutes, but it left a strong impression on both of them. Melinda complimented his recent business achievements and spoke about his growing reputation in the corporate world. Desmond, who had become used to admiration and praise, found her confidence attractive. Over the following weeks, they began encountering each other more frequently at social gatherings and business events. Slowly, their conversations became longer and more personal. What started as casual networking soon turned into something far more dangerous, because Melinda was quietly positioning herself closer to Desmond, while he began enjoying the attention she gave him far more than he should have. As months passed, Rita began to notice the growing distance between her and Desmond more clearly. The once lively conversations they shared at dinner were now replaced with short, distracted responses from him. Many evenings he returned home long after midnight, claiming he had important meetings or networking events that required his attention. Rita tried to believe him because she understood how demanding his career had become, but the warmth that once filled their home had slowly disappeared. The luxurious penthouse they lived in now felt strangely empty despite its beauty. Rita continued focusing on her work as an interior designer, gradually building her reputation in the industry. Her creativity and patience made her well liked by clients, and several successful projects brought her professional satisfaction. However, when she returned home after a long day, she often found herself alone in the quiet apartment. She would sometimes prepare dinner for both of them, hoping Desmond would return early so they could spend time together like they used to. Many nights the food simply grew cold on the table while she waited. Despite everything, Rita refused to give up on their marriage. She believed that every relationship went through difficult periods, especially when careers and responsibilities became overwhelming. She continued supporting Desmond, encouraging him whenever he seemed stressed and trying to remind him of the dreams they once shared together. Yet deep in her heart, she felt a growing sense of sadness and uncertainty. She didn't yet know about Melinda Ramsey or the dangerous influence she was beginning to have on Desmond's life, but Rita could sense that something was quietly pulling her husband further away from her with each passing day. One quiet morning, Rita woke earlier than usual feeling strangely tired and dizzy. At first she assumed it was simply exhaustion from long hours at work, but as the days passed the feeling did not disappear. Concerned, she decided to visit her doctor for a routine checkup. Sitting in the small clinic room, Rita waited patiently as the doctor reviewed the test results. When the doctor finally looked up with a gentle smile and told her she was pregnant, Rita felt a sudden wave of emotions she could hardly explain. Surprise, joy, excitement, and nervousness all rushed through her at once. She placed her hand gently on her stomach, realizing that a new life had already begun to grow inside her. The news filled her heart with hope. Rita believed that this child could bring warmth back into her marriage. She imagined telling Desmond the wonderful news and seeing his face light up with happiness. In her mind, the baby would remind him of the love they once shared and help them rebuild the family they had dreamed of together. That evening she prepared a small dinner at home and waited patiently for him to return so she could share the exciting moment with him. When Desmond finally arrived late that night, he looked tired and distracted as usual. Rita greeted him warmly and gently told him about the pregnancy, expecting excitement or at least surprise. Instead, his reaction was cold and distant. He simply stared at her for a moment before sighing heavily, as if the news had become another responsibility he didn't want. He muttered that he had too many things to focus on in his career and that the timing was inconvenient. Rita tried to hide her disappointment, but his lack of joy hurt her deeply. What she had hoped would bring them closer together had instead created an uncomfortable silence between them. Yet Rita still held on to hope, believing that once the reality settled in, Desmond would eventually embrace the idea of becoming a father. As Rita's pregnancy progressed, the emotional distance between her and Desmond only became more painful. Instead of showing care or concern for her condition, Desmond grew increasingly impatient and cold. He rarely asked how she was feeling and showed little interest in the doctor's appointments she attended alone. Rita tried to remain calm and hopeful, telling herself that perhaps he was simply overwhelmed by work and responsibility. However, each passing week made it harder for her to ignore the reality that her husband no longer treated her with the kindness he once had. Desmond's behavior gradually became more openly harsh. When Rita attempted to speak about preparing for the baby or making small changes in their home for the child's arrival, he brushed the conversations aside with irritation. Sometimes he criticized her for being too emotional or overthinking things. The penthouse that once felt like the beginning of their dream life now felt like a place where Rita walked carefully, afraid of upsetting him. Even simple requests, like asking him to join her for dinner or attend a medical checkup, were often met with frustration from him. Meanwhile, Desmond had grown increasingly close to Melinda Ramsey. He spent more evenings attending events with her, telling himself that it was all part of maintaining important business connections. Melinda knew exactly how to flatter his ego and make him feel admired, something he no longer felt at home. Slowly, he began prioritizing her company over everything else in his life. Rita, unaware of the full truth, could only sense that her husband was drifting further away. While she quietly prepared for the arrival of their child, Desmond was already allowing another woman to take a place in his life that should never have existed. One afternoon, while reviewing documents in his office, Desmond received an elegant invitation sealed in a thick ivory envelope stamped with the national crest. It was an invitation to attend the National Unity Gala, one of the most prestigious annual events in the country. The gala gathered influential leaders from business, politics, media, and philanthropy. It was an evening attended by the nation's most powerful figures, including the respected and widely admired President, Elijah White. For ambitious businessmen like Desmond, the gala was more than a celebration, it was an opportunity to strengthen alliances and elevate their public image among the elite. The invitation clearly stated that the event required married couples to attend together, as the gala symbolized unity, stability, and social responsibility. When Desmond read that detail, he frowned slightly. His first thought was not about bringing Rita, but about how he had already planned to attend social gatherings with Melinda Ramsey that same week. Over the past months, Melinda had become a constant presence in his life. She had skillfully positioned herself as someone who understood his ambitions and admired his success. Desmond enjoyed the attention she gave him, and he increasingly preferred her glamorous company at high-profile events. That evening, when Rita noticed the invitation placed on the table, she felt a spark of excitement. It was rare for Desmond to receive invitations to such nationally recognized events, and she saw it as an opportunity for them to spend time together again. With gentle enthusiasm, she asked if they would attend the gala as a couple. Desmond's reaction was distant and reluctant. He told her he would go, but he did not want unnecessary distractions during such an important event. His tone made Rita feel unwelcome, though he did not openly refuse her. Despite the tension, Rita quietly decided that she would still attend. She believed that perhaps being seen together publicly might remind Desmond of the commitment they had once promised to honor. In the days leading up to the National Unity Gala, the tension between Rita and Desmond quietly grew. Rita tried to prepare for the event with calm optimism. She carefully chose a soft, elegant gown that accommodated her growing pregnancy while still reflecting her graceful style. Though she was several months along, she carried herself with dignity and quiet confidence. She believed that appearing beside her husband at such an important gathering might help restore some of the respect and unity their marriage once had. Desmond, however, had very different intentions. Behind Rita's back, he had already arranged to attend the gala with Melinda Ramsey. Melinda had convinced him that showing up with a glamorous woman would elevate his social standing among powerful guests. But when he was reminded that the gala required married couples to attend together, Desmond became irritated. Rather than cancel his plans with Melinda, he decided on a selfish solution. He told Rita that he would be arriving early for business discussions and that she should come later if she wanted to attend. His tone made it clear that he did not want to appear publicly beside her. On the evening of the gala, the grand hall of the National Palace glittered with golden lights and elegant decorations. Luxury cars arrived one after another, delivering powerful guests dressed in formal attire. Desmond arrived early, accompanied by Melinda, who wore a striking designer gown that immediately attracted attention. They entered the hall together as if they were a couple, enjoying the admiration of several guests who recognized Desmond's growing influence. Meanwhile, sometime later that evening, Rita slowly arrived on her own. Her pregnancy was clearly visible beneath her graceful gown, but she walked with quiet strength. As she entered the magnificent hall and looked around at the gathering crowd, her eyes eventually landed on Desmond, and what she saw beside him would soon lead to one of the most humiliating moments of her life. The grand ballroom of the National Palace shimmered with elegance as music floated gently through the air and conversations filled the space. Rita stood quietly near the entrance for a moment, taking in the sight of the lavish event. Crystal chandeliers glowed above hundreds of distinguished guests, business leaders, diplomats, philanthropists, and political figures. For someone like Rita, who had grown up in a modest household, the environment felt overwhelming. Yet she gathered her courage and walked further into the hall, determined to greet her husband and spend the evening with dignity. Across the room, Desmond stood among a group of wealthy executives, laughing confidently as he spoke. Beside him was Melinda Ramsey, her glamorous presence attracting admiring glances from many guests. When Rita noticed them together, her heart sank for a moment, but she forced herself to remain calm. She believed that perhaps Desmond had only brought Melinda as a professional acquaintance. Taking a deep breath, Rita slowly approached the group. Her pregnancy was clearly visible beneath her elegant gown, and several people turned their heads curiously as she walked toward them. When Rita finally reached Desmond, she greeted him gently, hoping he would acknowledge her presence warmly. Instead, Desmond looked at her with visible irritation. Before she could even speak further, one of his colleagues glanced between them and casually asked, "Desmond, is this your wife?" For a brief second, the room felt silent. Rather than admit the truth, Desmond laughed awkwardly and shook his head. He coldly replied that he didn't know the woman standing there. The words fell like a heavy blow. Rita stood frozen, shocked by the humiliation. Murmurs spread quietly through the group as people looked at her with confusion and pity. At that very moment, among the distinguished guests watching the scene unfold from a short distance away, President Elijah White observed everything, and what he saw stirred something unexpected within him. The uncomfortable silence that followed Desmond's denial spread quietly through the nearby crowd. Several guests looked at Rita with sympathy, while others exchanged uneasy glances. Rita stood still for a moment, trying to process the humiliation she had just experienced. Her heart felt heavy, but she refused to cry in front of the gathering of powerful strangers. With quiet dignity, she turned slightly as if preparing to leave the group and escape the painful moment. But before she could take another step, a calm yet commanding voice suddenly spoke from behind her. "Excuse me." The voice belonged to President Elijah White. The moment he stepped forward, the surrounding guests immediately fell silent out of respect. Elijah White was widely admired across the nation, not only for his leadership but for his reputation as a man of fairness and strong moral character. Tall, composed, and dignified, he carried an aura that naturally drew attention without effort. Throughout the evening he had been observing the event, greeting guests and listening to conversations. But when he witnessed the way Desmond had publicly humiliated a pregnant woman, something about the situation deeply disturbed him. Elijah approached Rita with a respectful expression and offered her a gentle smile. Up close, he noticed her quiet strength and natural elegance despite the painful situation she had just endured. Turning briefly toward Desmond, he gave him a calm but unmistakably disapproving glance before addressing Rita again. In a clear voice that carried across the nearby crowd, Elijah said something that shocked everyone present. He told her that any man who could deny such a graceful and courageous woman did not deserve her. Then, without hesitation, he made an extraordinary gesture. He asked if she would consider becoming his partner in life. The entire ballroom seemed to freeze in disbelief as the president openly proposed to her. Rita looked at him in stunned silence, while Desmond stood nearby, unable to hide the shock and jealousy spreading across his face. For several seconds after President Elijah White spoke, the grand ballroom felt as if time itself had paused. Conversations stopped, music faded into the background, and hundreds of curious eyes turned toward the unbelievable scene unfolding in the center of the hall. Rita stood frozen, trying to understand what had just happened. Only moments earlier she had been humiliated in front of strangers, denied by the man she had married. Now the most powerful man in the country stood before her, offering her respect and protection in front of everyone. President Elijah's expression remained calm and sincere. His proposal was not dramatic or theatrical, it carried the steady confidence of a man who knew exactly why he was making such a decision. He had seen Rita's dignity in the face of humiliation and admired her strength. To him, she represented something rare, grace under pressure and quiet courage. He gently assured her that his words were not meant to pressure her, but he wanted the world to know that she deserved far better than what she had just experienced. Rita took a slow breath, her heart still racing. She glanced briefly around the room and then toward Desmond, who stood completely silent. His face showed disbelief mixed with a growing sense of anger and jealousy, but he said nothing. The same man who had just denied knowing her now looked as if he wanted to protest, but his pride kept him quiet. After a long moment of reflection, Rita looked back at President Elijah. With calm dignity, she accepted his proposal. A quiet wave of astonishment moved through the guests as whispers filled the hall. Desmond remained where he stood, watching the moment unfold, realizing that in his arrogance he had just lost something far more valuable than he had ever understood. The days following the National Unity Gala quickly became the most talked-about topic across the country's media and social circles. News outlets, newspapers, and television programs discussed the unexpected moment when President Elijah White publicly defended a pregnant woman who had been humiliated and then proposed to her in front of the nation's elite. Many people admired the president's courage and compassion, while others were simply shocked by the boldness of the gesture. Rita Charles, who had once lived a quiet life as an interior designer, suddenly found her name appearing in headlines everywhere. Despite the overwhelming attention, President Elijah made sure that Rita was treated with patience and respect. Rather than rushing her into a life she was unprepared for, he personally reassured her that she could take time to adjust to the sudden changes. He arranged for her to stay in a peaceful residence owned by the presidential estate where she could rest comfortably during her pregnancy. Unlike the cold atmosphere she had experienced with Desmond, the environment around Elijah was filled with warmth and professionalism. Staff members treated her kindly, and Elijah himself made time to speak with her often, learning about her life, her work as a designer, and the dreams she once had before her marriage began to fall apart. For Rita, the change felt almost unreal. Only days earlier she had been standing alone in a crowded ballroom, publicly rejected by the man she trusted most. Now she found herself surrounded by people who treated her with dignity and care. Elijah's calm presence slowly gave her a sense of security she had not felt in a long time. Though the future was still uncertain, Rita began to believe that perhaps her life was moving toward a new chapter, one where she and her unborn child could live with respect, stability, and hope. While Rita's life began slowly moving toward peace and stability, Desmond Carter's world was quietly beginning to collapse. In the weeks after the gala, he tried to bury himself in work, pretending that the shocking event had not affected him. However, the humiliation of watching his pregnant wife accept a proposal from the president in front of the entire elite society lingered painfully in his mind. His reputation among some business associates had also suffered, as rumors about the incident spread through corporate circles. Desmond became increasingly restless and irritated, determined to regain control of his image and financial empire. One afternoon, while reviewing his company's financial records, Desmond noticed several unusual transactions connected to his personal accounts. At first he assumed they were routine investments or expenses managed by his financial team. But as he examined the documents more closely, the numbers began to disturb him. Large amounts of money had been transferred over the past months into accounts he did not recognize. The deeper he investigated, the clearer the truth became. Someone had been quietly draining money from his finances for a long time without his knowledge. The realization struck him like a cold shock when he traced the accounts back to Melinda Ramsey. The same woman who had flattered him, accompanied him to events, and convinced him she admired his success had been secretly moving his money into hidden accounts. Desmond immediately tried to contact her, but every attempt failed. Her phone was unreachable, her apartment was empty, and several of her business contacts claimed they had not heard from her in days. It soon became painfully clear Melinda had disappeared completely. She had taken a significant portion of his wealth and vanished without a trace, leaving Desmond standing alone with the consequences of the choices he had made. The discovery of Melinda's betrayal struck Desmond harder than anything he had experienced before. At first, he refused to believe the truth. He convinced himself there must have been some misunderstanding in the financial records. But as his legal advisors and financial managers continued investigating the transactions, the reality became undeniable. Melinda had carefully planned everything for months. She had slowly gained access to his trust, his private accounts, and his financial systems. By the time Desmond realized what had happened, millions had already been moved beyond his reach. The damage did not stop there. Several of Desmond's business partners soon became aware of the financial irregularities surrounding his accounts. Investors who once admired his confidence began questioning his judgment. In the competitive corporate world, where reputation meant everything, even a hint of instability could destroy years of hard-earned influence. Deals that once seemed guaranteed were suddenly delayed or cancelled. Colleagues who had once surrounded him with admiration now kept their distance, unsure whether his business empire was still secure. For the first time in many years, Desmond felt completely powerless. The luxurious penthouse that once symbolized his success now felt like an empty monument to his mistakes. Every quiet moment forced him to confront the reality of what he had lost, not just money, but the respect of others and the woman who had once genuinely cared for him. Rita had supported him when he was still building his career, believing in him long before wealth and status entered his life. Yet he had pushed her away, humiliating her in front of the world. Now the woman who had replaced her had vanished with his fortune, leaving him to face the consequences of his arrogance alone. As the weeks passed, Desmond Carter's life became quieter and far more uncomfortable than he had ever imagined. The once busy penthouse that had been filled with the noise of phone calls, meetings, and social gatherings now stood mostly silent. Many of the people who once surrounded him, business partners, investors, and influential friends, had gradually distanced themselves after hearing about the financial losses and the scandal at the National Unity Gala. Desmond spent long hours alone reviewing old documents, trying unsuccessfully to recover the money Melinda had taken. Every failed attempt only reminded him of how easily he had trusted the wrong person. During those lonely nights, Desmond often found himself thinking about Rita. Memories of their early years together slowly returned, simple dinners in their small apartment, the way she had encouraged him when his career was uncertain, and the genuine pride she showed when he achieved success. Back then, she had supported him without expecting anything in return. Yet as his wealth and influence grew, he had begun to see her not as a partner but as someone who no longer fit the powerful image he wanted to project. The painful truth became clear to him: the woman he had publicly denied was the one person who had truly cared for him from the beginning. News about Rita continued appearing in the media from time to time, usually showing her attending charitable events alongside President Elijah White. She looked calm, confident, and respected, very different from the vulnerable woman he had humiliated at the gala. Seeing those images stirred a deep regret within Desmond. He realized that no amount of money or success could undo the moment when he had chosen pride over loyalty. The life he once shared with Rita had been full of possibilities, yet he had destroyed it with his own actions. And now, watching from a distance, he understood that some mistakes could never truly be repaired. Months passed, and Rita's life slowly settled into a peaceful rhythm she had not experienced in years. The early storms of public attention faded, replaced by a quieter routine surrounded by supportive people. President Elijah White remained patient and respectful throughout everything. Rather than rushing Rita into a dramatic change, he gave her time to heal and adjust to her new circumstances. Their relationship grew gradually through long conversations, shared meals, and moments of quiet understanding. Elijah admired Rita not only for her grace, but also for her resilience. Despite the hardships she had faced, she still carried kindness and dignity wherever she went. When the time finally came for Rita to welcome her child into the world, the moment was filled with joy rather than fear. Elijah stayed close, offering calm encouragement and support. The arrival of the baby brought a new sense of hope into Rita's life. Holding her child in her arms for the first time, she felt the weight of the past finally begin to lift. The painful memories of humiliation and heartbreak were replaced by the quiet promise of a future built on respect and love. Elijah accepted the child wholeheartedly, treating the baby as part of the life they were building together. Far away from the warmth of that new beginning, Desmond Carter continued living with the consequences of his choices. His once powerful reputation had faded, and the wealth he once relied upon was no longer secure. Meanwhile, Rita moved forward with a life defined by dignity, compassion, and opportunity. What began as a moment of public humiliation had unexpectedly opened the door to a completely different future. In the end, Rita discovered that losing what once seemed like everything had led her to something far greater, a life rewritten with strength, respect, and a new beginning filled with hope. And that brings us to the end of today's story. The world of luxury often hides stories deeper than what meets the eye. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating stories on luxury jewel stories. Until our next story, take care and stay tuned for more.